Alrighty, we are back with insider betting. Dricus Du Plessis is taking on Israel Adesanya for the true African champion status. We got Kair versus Steve Erceg, who's coming off of a loss in the title fight versus Pantoja. We got Tai Tuivasa, who's on a 4-fight losing streak. We'll talk all about it right away. But first things first, Jesse, appreciate you joining me. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling a little bad for the fans that have to get up at 6 a.m. to go check out the prelims for this card in Perth, Australia. But I'll be locked in. There's a lot of Aussies. There's a lot of favorites, heavy favorites on this card across the board, but some good ones on the main card. So I'm excited.
Hell yeah. One thing I will say is we do feel sorry for those Australians, but we don't watch the prelims. You don't watch the prelims. So as always, we don't cover the prelims. But anyway, let's get into the first fight of the main card. And I do want to say that actually, before we move on, we actually sometimes do watch the prelims, especially on pay-per-views, because they're a little bit more entertaining. On the UFC fight cards, they're just not worth talking about a lot of the time. But on this card specifically, the prelims all kind of suck still. You have Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos, which is a decent one, but for me, it was an all or none, and I didn't think that one fight was worth covering to bring all the other ones up. So anyway.
I mean, we literally have like a minus 1,200 on the prelims, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like,
yeah, like it's just like not worth covering.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all gimmies. But anyway, we have Li Jingliang coming back after a 2-year layoff because I believe he got back surgery, and he's fighting Carlos Prates, who is on a 9-fight win streak. He's only 2-0 in the UFC, but crazy stat here. He's on an 8-fight knockout streak, which is pretty insane. So yeah, they're going to be opening up our main card. Lee's last fight was against D-Rod. It was a split decision loss. A lot of fans thought he should have won it. He also has losses against Hamza Chimaev and Neil Magny. Prates has a 6.5-inch reach advantage. I think this one is a very simple call. I think it's going to be a stand-up game. I think it's going to be a knockout. I think it's very tough to come back after 2 years off. You're fighting against the up-and-coming star. It feels like one of those fights that the UFC is setting up for Prates to kind of get his start in the UFC, and I think it's going to go with a bang. I think he's probably going to get a knockout, but yeah, I'm going with Prates for this one. How you feel about it, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm leaning Prates. I'm happy to see the Leech back. It's been a while. He's somewhat of a fan favorite. You mentioned that he had a tough split decision loss to D-Rod. I do agree. He probably won that fight. Even Dana White agrees that he thought the Leech won that fight when he did the post-fight press conference. I think it was UFC 278, I believe, or 279, whichever one it was, where he thought that the Leech won that fight. He also didn't get to wear his show off his suit at the press conference, so I was excited to see that he's on the main card. And then I see earlier today that he's actually not going to be at the press conference, so he still doesn't get to show off that suit. I hope he can take it out in the octagon. He can get the win, but I'm kind of leaning your way here. Prates, he's been featured pretty heavily on UFC's Embedded this week. UFC likes him. They're hoping to build more of him. He's Brazilian, right?
Correct. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, he's got the reach. He's younger. It's not going to be Leech might mix in some takedowns. It says here he does average like a little over 1 takedown per fight. So if he could mix those in, I think there's a chance that he could like maybe sway some scorecards, but he has to get to the end of the scorecard, and that's the problem for him in this fight. I agree. Is how if he can avoid getting finished, and it feels like Prates might be in line for a finish here.
Look, I noticed that as well. I saw the takedowns. I think Leech has a significant grappling advantage when it comes to this fight. If you look at Prates, he hasn't even attempted a takedown, it looks like, in the UFC. But he does have 80% takedown defense, which stood out to me as well. So yeah, maybe he's not the best at taking you down, but he's good at staying on his feet. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I think a knockout, unfortunately on DraftKings, it's not available yet. I think it's too soon, but I think a knockout prop bet is probably a decent one to take a look at here.
Yeah, I'm looking and it's still not there. So
Still not there. It is what
Yeah.
it is. Next up, we have a heavyweight fight. One of my favorite fighters in the UFC, Tai Tuivasa. He was actually a fighter when Inside Fighting first started like 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. Tai Tuivasa was one of the first fighters to show us love. We have a great relationship with him and his team. I've always loved the way he works. We are the founder of Inside Fighting, Robbie Clark, did a shoey with Tai during an interview once. So yeah, I love his energy. I think he seems like a great person. I would love for him to win. He's on a 4-fight losing streak. He's fighting Jairzinho over here, who is coming off of a win, but prior to that, he was on
You can
a
try
kind of a bit of
Rozenstruik. You can give it a shot. Rozenstruik.
I think Jairzinho is just a cool name. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, he's coming off of a win, but before that, he was coming off of a loss to Jailton Almeida. He's also got a loss to Volkov, Curtis Blades. We got the 12th overall fighter versus the 10th overall fighter, which is honestly Tai Tuivasa still being ranked during like a 4-fight losing streak is impressive, and I think that shows that the UFC rates him. Both guys have 13 knockouts out of their 14 wins. This is another one that has knockout written all over it. I think this is one for Tai where he's probably going to come out super aggressive, to be honest. He's going to come out aggressive. He knows he needs to win. I think he's going to try to get a first-round knockout and finish it quick. I think the longer the fight goes, the less it favors Tai. But yeah, I'm hoping for a Tai Tuivasa here. I think at plus 180, it's the best underdog odds on the card, because I think they have equal odds of knocking each other out. So anyway, I'm riding with Tai here, but it's an emotional bet, so don't listen to me. Who do you got, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I think that he is the best odds on the card. Just in terms of fight style, home field advantage, being due for a win, if that's such a thing. You know, it's sometimes that's more of a thing for like baseball, you know, where or hockey or basketball, where like good teams, they're just due for a win. It's tough in fighting because when you take a lot of damage, you're kind of like, it's like Tony, you can become Tony Ferguson really quick. You know what I mean? It just, life comes at you fast, man. I still think Tai was doing some good things against, was it Tabora or Spivak? I forget.
Tabora.
He was piecing him up in that first round before he got submitted. And I think you're absolutely right about gassing out that it favors Rozenstruik if this fight goes longer. It is only 3 rounds, but Rozenstruik is coming off of a win over Shamil Gaziv, and Gaziv was just absolutely gassed by the end of that fight. Like, that was a 5-rounder though, so it's a little different. I will say plus 180. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah, plus 180.
I think this is the best possible matchup you could hope for Tai Tuivasa with underdog odds against this particular fighter. And I actually think Tai is going to get this one. I agree, you probably need to get it done early. And I agree this fight probably ends by knockout. But I like Tai. I think it's a good bet. I think that this is the best bet you're going to get on the card in terms of like things that could actually happen. I haven't decided yet if it's an emotional pick or not, but I like it. Yeah. I like Tai here. Yeah. And I mean, the guy's knocked out Derek Lewis. You know what I mean? Like, the guy has some big wins over some big time fighters. Why not Rozenstruik? Yeah. I think Tai is due. It's time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do want to emphasize the point you made about styles, because I do think styles make fights at the end of the day a lot of the time, right? So Tai's 4 losses are off to, I don't want to say they're like grapplers, but they're more well-rounded fighters, you know, like Tai Tuivasa, he's very one-dimensional. His striking will get you. He cannot fight you on the ground, you know. And he's struggled against guys that are multidimensional, right? Although his and Gon's fight was on the feet, there was always the possibility of Gon shooting a takedown or whatnot, right? With Jairzinho, he struggles the exact same way. He's lost to he's lost to Jailton Almeida, Volkov, Curtis Blades, all guys who, again, well-rounded fighters, wrestlers, can take you down, keep you on the ground, and so forth. So I think, yeah, you're putting 2 guys who both, like, this style of matchup favors the 2 of them. It's not just that it favors Tai. Like, I think they're both good going striker versus striker. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Before we continue,
Yeah.
Just gotta give a shout out and say that this
You're
video,
right.
this episode has been brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings.
Let's do it.
UFC 305 is this weekend, a big time middleweight title fight going down. And we're happy to announce that Inside Fighting has once again partnered up with DraftKings to bring you guys an offer. Or right now, if you're a new DraftKings customer, you can go download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, bet $5 on UFC 305, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets instantly using our promo code Inside Fighting.
All right, we're back. Jesse with the killer ad read stepping in for me. Anyways.
Hey, happy to do it.
Yes, sir. Feature fight of the night. Mateusz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. This is an interesting one, to say the least. Gamrot, he's on a 3-fight win streak. He's got wins over RDA, Fiziev, Jalen Turner. His most recent loss was against Beneil Dariush. You look at Dan Hooker, his most recent win was against Jalen Turner. Both guys can knock you out. I think something that's really important to note is Gamrot's ground game, obviously. He's beaten someone like Arman Tsarukyan. He averages a crazy, as you can see, 5.28 takedowns per fight. But again, Hooker's got an 80% takedown defense. So look at that as you will. I think that Gamrot's grappling is probably going to be a little bit too much for Dan Hooker. But an interesting stat that I saw is that Gamrot has been knocked down in every big fight he's fought. He's been knocked down, I believe, against RDA. He's been knocked down against Jalen Turner, Beneil Dariush. I think Arman Tsarukyan also knocked him. So he gets knocked down, but he always gets back up. So that's been kind of like the caveat for all of his fights. The question is, can Dan just put his lights out, and can he knock him down twice, which people have been able to do. So I think if Hooker can connect, drop him a couple times, we're looking to go Hooker. If Dan doesn't get a knockout, it's going to decision. And if it's going to decision, I think Gamrot wins this one.
Yeah, hard to argue. You mentioned styles might make fights. This is like one of those fights. I mean, look at the takedown averages. Look at the Hooker's got good takedown defense. Gamrot's takedown defense is insane, but that also might be because he doesn't get taken down a lot because he's such a high level grappler. Or they don't attempt many takedowns, I should say.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the significant strikes advantage goes to Gamrot as well. That's very interesting. Hooker,
well, that's percentage, right? Like you'll still have Hooker landing more per minute, about 2 more per minute there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Question is, can Hooker use his kicks early, take the legs out from Gamrot? I think that's going to be part of the game plan. City kickboxing, they really emphasize those leg kicks to take, especially against a grappler, getting the teep kicks in, getting the leg kicks in, taking out the lower half of your opponent's body early in a fight against a guy like Gamrot is going to be huge, because then Gamrot might be he might have not have as much explosiveness later in the fight to get those takedowns. And that's when Hooker can really do his work on the feet, because there's a clear edge here. I would argue there's a bigger edge for Hooker on the feet than there is for Gamrot on the ground, simply because I do think Hooker has good defense. His striking defense isn't great sometimes, but his grappling defense is, which is interesting. So that actually favors him in some regard here. It's hard to disagree here that Gamrot might be a lock. Especially if the fight goes the way we think. I'm taking Gamrot. I want to take Hooker really badly. I want him to win in front of the home crowd, but I think it's a tough fight for him, man. It's a great opportunity. He's ranked 11th. He could jump the rankings pretty fast, get into title contention, but he's already fought Islam. This is kind of make or break moment for Dan Hooker's career as like a title contender, is winning this fight. So it's just tough to bet against Gamrot here.
Yeah, it seems like it's probably the lock of the night, to be honest. Besides Prates, I'd actually give lock of the night status too. I guess might as well bring this up. If Gamrot wins, is he up for a title shot next after Tsarukyan?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. So Islam might be out for a while with because he has a hand injury, so he might actually be out for a while. So there's a chance that there's a chance for an interim title fight between Gamrot and Tsarukyan if Gamrot wins this fight. Gamrot deserves a shot. Gamrot's almost like the Bilal Muhammad of this division, where he's sort of like he's winning all of his fights. He's sort of becoming somewhat like undeniable in some regards. He's just not the most exciting guy. You know, he's just not he's not exciting to the fans, but he's winning all of his fights. The Fiziev fight might be a little fluky. Fiziev blew out his knee in that fight, which he might have been winning. So a little bit fluky there, but I do think I think if he wins this fight, I think Gamrot will probably be in line for like an interim title shot because I do think Tsarukyan is next in line if Islam will be ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that that Gamrot doesn't have that Bilal Muhammad had is that he's got a loss on his belt, right?
Yeah.
So against Dariush, but the same thing goes for Arman Tsarukyan, right? Like he's lost to Gamrot, so both guys in the same boat here. But Arman's been on a longer fight win streak, which is why he's getting that title shot next. And
I think Bilal got knocked out like very early in his UFC career, and then like hasn't lost since. I believe.
I think you're right. I think it's something like that. But yeah.
So
yeah. Anyways. Co-main event. This is two fan favorites. Steve Erceg obviously became a massive fan favorite during his last fight versus Alexander Pantoja, where he put up a good fight. I think a much better fight than most people expected he would put up. He was taken down a ridiculous 9 times, but that fight did go to decision. People liked seeing people liked what they saw. He still jumped up the rankings from that. He's coming up against Kair France, who is who's been out for about a year now. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's lost to Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi. I think it's a very interesting fight. The biggest obvious physique that you can kind of like see between these two fighters is that there's a 4-inch height advantage for Steve Erceg. He's a much bigger fighter in the flyweight division. Kair France, he's extremely fast. I was actually interested to see that his reach is actually longer than Steve Erceg's. So that was cool. But yeah, I think that being the shorter fighter, Kai is going to probably have to fight inside the pocket. He's going to have to get a ball in Steve Erceg's face. And for Steve Erceg, he gets hit a decent amount, about 1-to-1 to what he throws. And I think that he's going to have to take advantage of the size difference here and try to just take him down a bunch of times. And I think that's kind of the two strategies these guys are going to have moving in. I'd love Steve Erceg to win. I think he has a great chance of winning. I think he should be the favorite to win this one. I don't know. I feel like there's like this like dog in Kair France that's like you can't really see. And I think it's going to come out coming off of 2 losses. And I'm leaning towards Kair France, although I think this fight is the biggest. Well, yeah, the second biggest toss-up on the card, I'll say.
It's definitely the second biggest toss-up on the card. I agree about Kai. This fight feels like it's going to be a dog fight a little bit because especially because you don't have a ton of power at flyweight. So this could be like a war where both guys are getting hit really hard, but neither guy's getting knocked out. I would say, Erceg does have some pretty nasty knockouts, or one nasty knockout on his ledger against Matt Schnell. Who did he knock out? Matt Schnell?
Yeah, I think. No, you're right.
Yeah. Kai has, that city kickboxing. He's got incredible striking. Man, this is a very, very tough fight to call. I think if I'm leaning, I would lean just betting Erceg on decision simply because I could see this fight going a long way. Kair France had a very close fight against Amir Albazi in a main event, and that was people thought Kai might have won that fight. I could see something similar here where this fight's super close, split decision-y. Maybe Erceg wins on decision. Plus 120 for Erceg by decision is kind of where I'm leaning here. But man, this is a tough one to call. It's really tough.
Yeah. I
Kai's
will
got the dog in
say,
him, man.
so this is what I'll say here is that I agree. If this fight goes to decision, Steve Erceg all the way, just because I think he's going to be picking up Kai and throwing him down and getting those takedowns. Like I see that happening. But you're right. In the flyweight division, we don't really see like these big knockouts because they tend to be smaller, not as much power. Knockouts don't really happen as often unless you're Kair France.
Yeah.
He has he's got 11 knockouts or TKOs in his 24 wins. 10 fights are also by decision, so it's pretty 50-50 there. He's knocked out people like Cody Garbrandt, I do think he does have that knockout power, and I think he might knock out Steve Erceg. I think there's a possibility for that.
I feel Steve's got a good chin. He's big for the division, so it makes him a little tougher to knock out for sure, which might be an issue for Kai here. It might also be an issue for Steve. He might not be able to. Things might be coming in at weird angles for him against Kair France.
Yeah, he's quick.
So
he's quick. Another thing I'll say, and before I move on to the main event here, is that Kair France, before losing to Amir Albazi, he only loses to like very legit opponents. He's got 2 losses against Brandon Moreno. He's got a loss against Brandon Royval, two champs there, right? So those are legit opponents to lose to, and got to give him credit where it's due. Obviously, Erceg also has a credible loss in the UFC, but that was, that fight only happened because of circumstances.
Yeah.
And although he did very good, we haven't seen enough of Steve to like really be able to be like, yeah, he's the man, But anyway, main event of the night.
About the knockouts in flyweight, by the way, I just do want to mention we did have one sick knockout at the Contender Series last night. Lon Cavan,
I saw that one.
Got a crazy knockout. That was a flyweight fight. So it could definitely use some crazy finishes like that. This division it might be on the outs in some fans' eyes. So yeah, we could use some knockouts.
Oh, hell yeah. Anyway, main event of the night, reason we're all here, Izzy versus DDP. A fight that should have happened a while ago, but DDP pulled out to injury. Sean Strickland came in. Sean Strickland beat Izzy, and now you're like, whoa, now this DDP and Izzy fight doesn't make sense. DDP fights Sean Strickland, beats him, new champ. Now we get the matchup we wanted. Obviously, this all started with DDP saying he's going to be the first real African champion. What he was referring to is that he lives in Africa, trains in Africa, breathed African air, to use his wording. And so he considered himself to be the first champion. I'm not going to get into that. That's not important.
He knew what he was saying, Adam.
He knew exactly what he was saying. Yeah. He knew what he wanted. But you know what? Good for him, right? Like, that's how you get the attention of people who you want their attention.
Yeah.
And so love it or hate it, he did what he had to do, and he's the champ now, and he's going to be defending the belt against arguably the greatest middleweight of all time. But it's an interesting one. Izzy's obviously coming off of a bit of a break. I saw a video, I saw an interview. I forget who it was, but they were saying that Izzy hasn't fought fully healthy in like many years. I think they said that the last fight that he was fully healthy for was Kelvin Gastelum, which was back in 2019, or maybe it was Derek Brunson. But either way, long time ago. So he always comes in a little bit injured. We're going to see a fully healthy Izzy Adesanya, assuming that his training camp went to plan and everything, and that nothing happened there. But he's had enough time to recover to come back fully healthy. This fight can go so many ways. I think like it was interesting that DDP called like Sean Strickland Izzy's kryptonite in the way he kind of fought. And then I thought it was interesting to see that. So the way Sean Strickland beat Izzy is the exact same way DDP beat Sean, and it's just like putting on the pressure, just coming in there, putting on the pressure, going for the takedowns, getting up all in his face, not giving him a second to breathe, not giving him a second to put out a precise shot like Izzy does. Obviously, we haven't seen Izzy look that good in recent fights. There was the loss to Sean Strickland. There was the win over Alex Pereira that you know, he kind of came in, got the knockout, but Alex was still piecing him up for a little bit during that fight, you know? So although he won, it wasn't as close as people, or it wasn't as distant as people might think. It was a lot closer than that. Fight before that, he lost to Alex Pereira. And, you know, so he's on a 3-fight iffy streak. um, so the odds are actually even now on DraftKings. When I was making this graphic, they were not, but they've been getting more even over the weeks. So now I think they're exactly even. I'm unfortunately going with DDP. I think Izzy's a little bit older. I would love Izzy to win. Like, don't get me wrong. And I'm not choosing Izzy, or I'm not choosing DDP because I don't like Izzy. I would want Izzy to win. I like Izzy more. I just think that we've kind of seen like the formula to beating Izzy. And I think DDP is really good at following a game plan. And I think he's going to follow his game plan to the T. The question is, will Izzy have an answer to his game plan? I think. So, yeah.
Yeah. You were mentioning how close that Pereira fight was. I do want to point out there was actually a verdict scorecard that was just posted yesterday, I believe, that showed that fight was actually like like both rounds were scored up until the knockout. Both rounds were scored like 9.5 to 9.5. It was like just right down the middle. Like there was no clear winner there. This fight's interesting. It you know, if I'm leaning towards DDP, the way I would put it is I'm thinking about Izzy's fight against Jan Blachowicz when Izzy went up to 205, tried to become double champion. Jan Blachowicz really used his physicality and his size and takedowns to like lay on top of Izzy and really, you know, essentially control the fight, control time on Izzy, where by the end of the fight, Izzy was gassed. I could see a situation similar here with this fight where DDP can use that physicality because he is kind of a 205er in a 185ers division. You know, DDP could easily fight at 205 pounds. Izzy's a virtuoso striker. And you're absolutely right about how Strickland beat Izzy was that Strickland had him on the back foot the whole time. He didn't have a chance to like push forward. He was constantly going backwards. And it remains to be seen how this fight's going to go, obviously, but I could see a situation where that's happening with DDP, where he can just sort of like use his like nuclear, like bear strength that he has, just going forward like a bulldozer on Izzy, like the whole fight. And that's going to be tough for Izzy to overcome. Izzy's got to get him early. That's the key. He's got to get him early. He's got to get respect early. Because his striking is so good. I just like I've said many times before, I need to see the first 30 seconds to a minute of this fight before I can even decide what the hell is going to happen. But I'm kind of with you here. I think I'm going with DDP. I feel like this is just Izzy didn't look good his last fight. He's been through a lot of wars, and DDP is just like he's right there, smack dab in the middle of his prime, and he hasn't lost in the UFC yet. You know, that's the problem. Is like he hasn't lost yet, and it's like I'll take the guy who's kind of right there, smack dab in the middle of it, and he kind of feels like he's on his way to becoming the next king of the middleweights. And if he beats Izzy, that's going to really put him up over the top. It's close, man. I'm flipping a coin in my head, but I think DDP will edge it out.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right with your analysis. Like, we're both saying DDP is winning by decision, is what we're saying. In other words, you know.
Yeah.
But if Izzy clips him early, DDP might be a little hesitant to put on that pressure. You know, he might not push him as hard as we need him to. And if he doesn't put on that pressure, he's not winning by decision, and he's more prone to getting clipped again by Izzy, right? So
I still think he's hard to knock out, though. That's the problem that I'm having for Izzy. I feel like DDP is going to be really tough to knock out. He's big, he's got a big neck. I just think that like it's got to be a perfect shot.
Yeah,
you know.
But if anyone's going to hit a perfect shot,
yeah, of course, no
right.
doubt about it. I'm almost like I don't even want, you know what? I'm probably not even going to bet this, so I don't want anybody watching this to like take my advice on this, simply because I'm not 100% sure. I don't really believe in my pick all that much. So I feel like that's what's going to happen, but it's super close.
Well, anyway, let us know in the comments if we're wrong. Probably are. But anyway, to wrap this episode up, as always, we got our parlay of the night. Interesting, because some of these picks are against what I was saying. But I think everyone is on DDP's horn here a little bit because he got 6 takedowns versus Sean Strickland. And that's cool and all, but I don't think he's doing that to Izzy. So I'm going with the under 4.5 takedowns landed at -165. He's still going to get takedowns, probably 2 or 3, and that's probably going to win him the fight if it goes to decision. But I don't think he's getting 6 like he did against Strickland.
Yeah.
Dan Hooker, under 45.5 significant strikes landed. I just think that I think the fight goes 2 ways. One, Hooker gets the knockout. If he gets the knockout, not enough time in the fight to get the 45.5 strikes. Number 2 is Gamrot pancakes this guy the entire fight and just is on top of him the entire fight, runs the clock, takes the decision. Still not enough time for him to get 45.5 significant strikes landed. So that's where I'm going with there. And Steve Erceg, over 0.5 takedowns landed. 4-inch height advantage. He's the bigger guy. I think he's going to be able to toss him up at the very least 1 time. And that makes up our parlay. Plus 371, $100 gets you 471.84. Like Jesse said, we can use the bonus bets to get this from our DraftKings partnership. But anyway, what are your thoughts, dude?
I like it. I don't really, I'm trying to figure out what the parlay buster is here. Maybe it's DDP, only because it's 5 rounds. Like maybe he gets 1 takedown a round and then it busts. But like, I don't know. I kind of like it because I kind of agree about the Hooker bet. Yeah. It's tough to get over 40, to get 46 significant strikes if you're on your back or if you're getting the knockout. So it's tough. Maybe that is the one. Maybe he clips his legs a lot early. He gets like 20 early, like in the first round or something like that. That could be, I'll say the Hooker one. That's the parlay buster. Yeah. But it's close. I like it.
It was brutal.
What?
Last week, I had Danny Barlow over 51.5 significant strikes, I think it was. I have to check the exact number. Give me a second. I'm going to pull up this parlay because I should have been on a 2 parlay win streak here, and then it got busted.
No.
I know. It was brutal. This is what I had going on. I had Yana Santos, Chelsea Chandler going the distance. I had Spivak over 0.5 takedowns.
Right.
And I had Danny Barlow at over 51.5 significant strikes landed. And the big caveat was if Danny Barlow knocks him out early, it's done.
That's what I said. I said he was the parlay buster for that reason. And then he ends up winning split decision.
It goes to decision and he wins and he only put up like 47 strikes.
Yeah,
landed.
That was unlucky.
Yeah, so that's tough. That's tough. I don't think you could do anything about that. But anyway.
It was a good bet. I like that bet.
Yeah,
it was a good
I think this one's hitting, but we'll see, I guess.
But
anyway, that was insider betting. UFC 305. Pumped to watch it. I think it's going to be a great card. As always, Jesse, I appreciate you joining me today, brother. And we will be back next Thursday.
Peace,
guys.